Matt, thank you so much for being here and joining us this morning. I'm super excited, just like I was telling you, to get to know you, to get to hear your experience. And I know our audience will really benefit as well from hearing your experience as founder and CEO of your own company. And for today's agenda, we'll be talking about business and strategy. When do you know it's the right time to launch? How to manage teams, how to build up your company from scratch. So I think it's going to be really exciting to hear this. And before we start with this interview, why don't we let our main guest introduce himself? Matt, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Matt Villareal, the founder and CEO of Infinite Composites, and we design, develop, and manufacture ultra lightweight gas tanks, basically for space, aviation, and transportation applications.
Okay, really straight to the point. Thank you, Matt. Would you mind giving us a little pitch about what Infinite Composites does and how did it start?
Sure. Yeah. So basically, the value proposition of our product to the customers is we're lighter weight, we're lower cost, and we can deliver faster. We're able to do that because we replaced heavy metallic structures in these tanks with ultra lightweight, all carbon fiber design. So in some cases, we can save like 90% of mass against like traditional metal tanks, and versus your state of the art tanks, we can save about 40% mass, which is very important in anything that flies in space or even passenger aircraft, stuff like that. All that weight can cost a lot of money. So the way that we kind of discovered this opportunity while my co-founder and I were in college at Oklahoma State University, we decided to join a collegiate racing team called Formula SAE. That was they design, build, and manufacture a quarter scale Formula One car every year from scratch. The team has to raise all the money, recruit all the team members, basically do all the work themselves. And our team had kind of dwindled down to about 2 engineers. They had no money and hadn't been to competition in about 4 years. So we joined the team to kickstart it again. And the way we did that was converting our cars to run on alternative fuels. So the first year we did an ethanol powered race car, which it wasn't really, we didn't do anything special other than pour this new fuel in our existing race car. It failed, but it got us some of the sponsorships that we needed to move forward. But the second year, we're focused on going bigger, wanted to do something more that would better differentiate us from the rest of the group. So we did a compressed natural gas powered race car. This was the first of its kind ever created in the world that we know of. And we put it through a 24-hour endurance test where we drove the car 590 continuous miles, setting some world records there. And then we set world records again the next year. But while we were driving it, because compressed natural gas powered vehicles have to use high pressure tanks on them, our tank was super heavy. It was all metal. It was about 10% of the weight of the vehicle. So it was not holding enough fuel. We kept having to refuel over and over again. So we're like, man, we need to find another solution for this. And started doing some research, found out that there was this technology called linerless composite pressure vessels, also known as the Type 5. And it was the holy grail of gas storage, according to Composites World magazine. And it could revolutionize space exploration and sustainable transportation. So basically thought this was really cool and came up with a concept for creating a linerless composite pressure vessel ourselves. And put $500 each into a company and just started doing it, applying for research funding, doing business plan competitions, developing business plans and stuff like that through my coursework. And eventually we just kind of got it rolling, but just kind of decided it and went forward.
And you're saying that this happened like 10 years ago?
Yeah, so this was when in 2010 was when we originally started the company. Michael and I, my co-founder and I, neither of us are engineers. I lead the product development and kind of, all the technology development, and I'm the lead inventor on 7 of our patents. But we just basically had to learn along the way. We were very lucky to get connected with an alum of our university who was a world-renowned expert on composite pressure vessels and spent 25 years with NASA. And he actually taught, a lot of your notable space companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Firefly how to make previous generation composite tanks. But he let us into his facility and mentored us through the initial startup and technology development, and we were able to get it to work. So been pushing on it ever since.
That was something that really caught my attention, because I noticed that you went to business school, right? And then you are suddenly a CEO and founder of this kind of company. And I was like, okay, so how did he learn all of that? I know that you have like the business background, kind of like entrepreneurship, something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, learning all of the technical stuff and technical facts, besides having the knowledge from the actual college that you're saying that they were really helpful, was it really difficult for you, or you were like, this is something that naturally came out to me?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was pretty natural. I've always had a insatiable curiosity for new things, figuring out how things work, making things that didn't exist before. So it was, I pretty much saw the opportunity and was like, I'm gonna, this is something that's incredibly challenging. It could take 10 years easily to get this technology off the floor. It's going to keep my interest, and it could have a huge impact on the world at large. And so I, made a conscious decision to pursue this, even though I knew it was going to be very challenging. But I, in my free time, I'm constantly looking up, white papers on material science and things on manufacturing. And so that's my personal passion and curiosity is in these fields, anyways. This was just a great application of something I was already interested in.
And I was going to ask you, because at the beginning you mentioned that the main problem with the traditional tanks, or the original one that you created, it was that it was too heavy, right? So what would you say is the main difference from the actual tanks that you guys now have? Yes, they're lighter, but what else could be like the main difference?
Yeah, the main difference is we don't have any metal structure inside the tank. So that's the metal liner, which is basically what holds the gas in. So you have these kind of 2 different components. The metal liner is intended to keep the gas from permeating out, and then they'll wrap that with carbon fiber on top to give it strength to hold the high pressures. So we basically combine those 2 functionalities into one structure made of the ultra lightweight carbon fiber. So we just basically eliminated that, and also that's the liner failing is the largest contributor to pressure vessel failures, and so we've eliminated that as a failure mode in our tanks as well, making them essentially safer.
Sounds really, really new to me. I mean, and how was this experience? Like in the market, talking about a little bit about business. How has been the experience of pushing or trying to push a non-traditional product?
Going into manufacturing and hardware product is very challenging. Not many investors understand how these businesses work, and then also, you can't just necessarily like make a mock-up. Like, people want to know how this thing's been tested, and you have to blow things up, and you got to break things to actually get the data you need to give customers confidence. So it's been challenging, but it's very fun. I mean, we've done tests with our tank on top of a 60-inch long bonfire while it's pressurized with natural gas to 4,000 psi, and with intentional explosion happening. So we get to do a lot of fun stuff like that. But when things don't go right, it's pretty bad.
I'd imagine. And how many tests like do you have to run, or do you have like a count of how many tests you have run since you ever started?
I don't have a count of tests that we've run, but we basically test every design that we make. So every time we change the geometry or the specs of the tank for a specific customer, we have to blow up a tank. It's not always a bonfire test, but we do explosive tests with water on every design to make sure that it can handle the pressures that it's going to see in operation. So pretty frequently.
And pretty fun stuff, I will say.
Yeah, definitely.
And since the company started you started the company in 2010, right? But
Yep.
you, like the first product, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, was launched at 2013. So it was
Yep.
basically like 2 years of developing or the early phase, or where do you say the
Hmm.
company stands right now?
Yeah, so we spent like the first 2.5 to 3 years basically developing the technology, getting it to work to deliver our first order. When we started the company, we were primarily focused on natural gas applications, but around the time when we delivered that first product in 2013, we saw a flood of new entrants into the market from Asian countries who were able to provide, products in natural gas at very, very low kind of economics that we weren't able to compete with. And at that same time, we had SpaceX reach out to us and NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, and just started getting more and more inquiries into companies who wanted our tanks for space applications. And we always knew there was an application there, or that was a good end use market, but we thought we would have to, penetrate it rather than getting pulled into it. And so once we realized how the economics and stuff are work in space, and that there's a lot more money to pay for performance, and people are more willing to push the limits of the technology, it made sense to switch gears and stop focusing on the natural gas and then focus more on space and aviation and some of these higher end products. But one of the things that's also been a huge challenge with this is actually having to build a manufacturing plant. So getting those first tanks to function and being able to deliver those to customers, it was a huge milestone. But then when they come back and now you got to make 10 times that much, or you got to do it on your own equipment. Building a manufacturing plant, I think, is an order of magnitude or more harder than building an actual technology, especially with a product like ours.
Do you remember, like back in the days, how do you feel, or was there any specific time where you said with your co-founder, or maybe by yourself, that you were like, okay, we're super ready to launch?
I mean, for us, it was more driven by timelines, delivery timelines, and stuff like that. It was like our first customer knew the product wasn't ready. Like, they went into the contract saying, we were like, we haven't gotten these things to work yet. We are willing to work, day and night to make it happen, but we haven't proven the concept yet. They were still willing to kind of go forward with it. So it's it's mostly driven by customer timelines versus us just saying, we're ready to launch. If it was up to us, there'd probably be a lot of trying to get it perfect over and over again. So I think it's honestly better that it's customers driving us forward, rather than trying to kind of artificially say it's ready to go.
You have to adapt to the customer's necessities. So
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the proof of concept. You talked about the manufacturing plan. So what will you say it was the main challenge in order to build a manufacturing plan?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, getting the capital to build a manufacturing plant as a startup company with no like major balance sheet, or we're two young guys with not a huge amount of credit or anything like that. That was very challenging. And then once you're able to buy all the equipment and get into a facility and stuff like that, it's really challenging to get your processes and everything under control. Our technology is a little bit of physics, a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of automation. There's a lot of different aspects to it, and being able to control all those things while also not having the founders and the guys who know it all actually doing all the work out there is definitely a major challenge. And so we've had to build up a lot of detailed documentation on how the processes work and how people are supposed to execute them. So that's been very challenging.
Yeah, I bet. And okay, manufacturing plan. What about licenses? Do you need any type of licenses or qualification plan or something like that in order to launch?
Yeah, we don't necessarily need licenses, but there are regulatory requirements depending on the end use application. One of the challenges we do run into is because our product category is so new. Most of the standards, both industry standards and government standards, don't appropriately address tanks like ours. So we're basically having to work with government agencies or regulatory standards bodies and stuff like that to make new standards that are applicable, because a lot of the previous stuff is focused on testing the liners. So there's a large portion of that requires you to have a liner, because we don't have one. Sometimes over 50% of the testing is not applicable to us. So, getting through some of that stuff is very challenging. And then a lot of our customers are launching rockets and stuff from like Air Force launch sites. So they also have, another level of requirements from range safety. And so you got the Air Force kind of dictating, what has to happen before you can launch here as well. So a lot of regulatory stuff. It makes sense because of the nature of this product. So it's not too challenging, but or it's not too onerous, but it is challenging to get it to make these things applicable when your technology is so new.
So the aerospace industry, will you say that's the main one?
Yeah, so space products and space projects are the lion's share of our revenue right now. We see that kind of shifting to more transportation-based projects in the future, just because space, it's fast growing right now, but there's a limited number of projects and customers out there for that. And so I see that still being 25% of our revenue, but over the next 2 to 3 years, I see that shifting more towards transportation and some of the more, I'll call it commoditized markets that are, being used more broadly.
How are you handling the commercial side? I know that you recently, like 6 years ago or so, you joined the board. So do you feel like your responsibilities, like your day-to-day to-dos, have changed? How is that structured?
Forming a board, yeah. So that was our first equity investment, which formed the board. I wouldn't say my day-to-day job has changed too much from joining the board, because I'm still operating the company. Things that you have to be more aware of when you have a board are, voting requirements, or not, agreeing to something that's you have to get approval for, and then being timely about reporting your financials and stuff like that. So day to day hasn't changed. You do have more resources at your disposal with having people on the board and having them wanting to help push the company forward. So a little bit more resources to deploy and networks to take advantage of. But day to day, my job's still the same. I'm still getting my hands dirty a decent amount, and solving problems out on the shop floor, and helping the engineers find different approaches to solve other problems.
What will you say? Maybe this is like a personal question, but I do realize that whenever you're talking about engineering process, like getting your hands dirty, I can feel the passion, Matt. So what will you say that you are enjoying now the most? The business side that you originally like went to school for, or the other part, like the engineering stuff and all of that?
It's I would say the engineering stuff is more fun, just because the projects we're working on rockets and lunar landers and next generation aircraft, stuff like that. So helping solve problems that are going to put our products on those kind of platforms is really fun and exciting. But on the business side, I love the challenge, but a lot of the stuff I'm doing on the business side is fundraising and investor relations and stuff like that, which is it's not necessarily the most kind of enjoyable process. I'd say the engineering stuff's a lot more fun than the business stuff, but the business stuff is required to make the engineering stuff happen. So it's necessary.
And what would you say you see the company in like 5 years from now on? Like, what will be the main strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main strategy will be expanding into more of the global market. We have customers in Europe right now, some small customers, but the majority are in US. And so I think there's a big demand for that. And so I see us having at least a sales office in Europe, but likely a manufacturing plant in Europe, and having at least 2 more locations here in the U.S. to support customers on the West Coast. And there's a lot of activity going on for both space and alternative fuel transportation. So we're looking to scale up big, and we think there's a possibility of an IPO at some point in the future over the next 3 to 5 years. So we're hoping to set ourselves up for that to happen.
That's gonna be super exciting. Then I'm
Yeah.
gonna make sure to follow up the track of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And any advice? I mean, last question, Matt, before we end up this call. And any advice you could give to CEOs, founders, engineers who are listening to this podcast?
I would say for aspiring entrepreneurs, the main thing is just do it. Just decide you want to do it and start making it happen. Don't wait for the right time. The right time's now. My advice is that new founders and even existing founders, focus on making products that have a positive impact on the world. There's a lot of, there's plenty of things out there that can make a lot of money and bring a lot of fame and success, but we need more people building technologies that can solve big problems right now. And so that'd be my advice to anyone listening.
That would be the main advice. Thank you so much, Matt, for being here and for sharing your experience. Do you have any social handles? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so we're on all social media: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Infinite Composites. Our website is www.infinitecomposites.com. And we're also we have an equity crowdfunding campaign open right now on Space Ventures. So if you go to Space Ventures, you'll see us there, and accredited and non-accredited investors can invest in our company for as little as $100. It's pretty interesting and exciting.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing with us. This was amazing, Matt. Thank you so much for taking the time. And remember, guys, that you can also find more information and interesting articles, interviews directly on our website, controlhub.com/builder-nation. Matt, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see each other soon.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for having me.